Now, China has admitted that President Trump's tariffs will put pressure on its economy, but said its long-term outlook was strong. China's National Bureau of Statistics says its economy grew by 5.4% in the first quarter of 2025, exceeding expectations. The figure also aligns with the Chinese government's annual growth target of around 5% this year. But analysts expect the growth to slow in the second quarter. They say the latest data covers the period before U.S. tariffs jumped to 145%. So businesses may well have bought up Chinese goods ahead of these tariffs coming in. Amid warnings about the pressure tariffs will place on the Chinese economy, the country's Statistics Bureau says China can deal with these external challenges and they won't change the long-term upward trend of the country's economy.
The number that we see today is pretty much a bit above expectation, that shows the sign of stabilization in the Chinese economy. The key factors are the better performance in the consumption, production, and also investment in general. Externally, we also see the quite good export growth number because of the front-loading effect from the rest of the world in buying more from China before the tariffs being put in place. However, the downside is that we haven't seen very clear signs of recovery in the property sector, and then the geopolitical risk may eventually materialize in.
Meanwhile, China has changed its top international trade negotiator. Li Chenggang, formerly Beijing's representative at the World Trade Organization, will now take charge of talks with the U.S. over tariffs. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the international development economist Odilim Basil Enwegbara. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, just tell us about these growth figures that have come out of China today. How credible are they?
You have said the word. I mean, at the end of the day, China is state-guided. It's not market-driven. So these are to create the impression that the economy is not feeling the heat. But of course, the economy has not started feeling the heat until we get to the second quarter. So this saying that they can withstand the pressure is not true. Because China exports, last year alone, exported $438 billion goods to the United States, with 10 million Chinese dependent on that. So I think they are not saying the truth until we get to the second and third quarter.
So according to them, China, the world's second biggest economy, which is what China is, grew at a healthy rate of 5.4%. I mean, given the global headwinds, I mean, we know the Chinese economy was struggling. I mean, how was it able to achieve such a healthy target?
You have answered the question by asking it, because what happened is front-loading. You know, people have to run. If you go to the United States, so many people are buying up because the effect. Remember that when you import, the time you import will not affect. If you imported in January or if you imported in December, these are the things that we now land overseas and things like that. And already, because exporters and importers already knew that these things will happen, so they quickly front-loaded. So the effect, I will tell you, China is lying. China is panicking. Behind the scenes, China is panicking because it's actually export-driven.
Well, let me pick you up on that, because as you said, this economic data covers the period before Donald Trump announced his trade tariffs. How resilient do you think the Chinese economy is likely to be in the face of those tariffs, beyond what the Chinese are saying?
So the first thing you have to look at, what is driving an economy? Economic growth. Chinese economy is driven exports, not internal consumption. They're doing everything to do internal consumption by investing in infrastructure, so to see how they will mobilize funds internally and things like that. Because when you invest locally, you trigger what you call grassroots economic development. But the problem is that China is still foreign dependent. Yeah, when you go to high-tech areas of electric vehicles and things like that, China is doing extremely very well. But in the real sense of consumption, China is not a consumer economy. It is America and the Western economies. So how will China...
And a country like Nigeria.
Like Nigeria. And so China will not just say that nothing is happening, but we shall see in the second and third. Invite me between second and third, and we now show you what's happening.
So I mean, given this very interesting analysis that you've given us, are we any clearer about what the Chinese authorities are going to do to try to insulate that economy, especially people, for example, who work in factories that make a lot of the products that end up in the United States?
It's a very beautiful question, but let me tell you what Trump is doing very fantastically people didn't know. You know, America is the world reserve currency, where people have to get dollar. So they don't need necessarily to sell, sell anything to the United States. They have to sell elsewhere to get the dollar. Now, what Trump wants to do, and what China did was currency war. China had been fighting currency war, continuously bringing the value of yuan to be artificially low. Now, America wants to do that because America wants people not to get the dollar, but they get American economy in exchange, not just to go and get dollar to keep it in reserve for whatever they're buying. So that is where China is trembling, because there will be a currency war. When America dumps its currency, its dollar, to a value that is unbelievable, China will feel the heat.
Very interesting. Nevertheless, it does seem, looking at the latest data, that the Chinese economy is more resilient than what Donald Trump would have his followers believe. Do you think perhaps Mr. Trump needs some kind of breakthrough to show that the pressure he's exerting on China is working? Because, I mean, this thing is economic, but it's also political.
Yes.
For his followers in America.
Yes.
I mean, do you think he needs to something else to show that the pressure he's putting, because all the other countries around the world, most of them have capitulated, except China.
Okay.
Because at this stage, he doesn't seem to be able to exert that kind of pressure on China.
I think let's not misconstrue the intention of Trump. I'm not his spokesman, but Trump actually wants to bring jobs to America and improve American economy, because America has been an exporter of dollars, printer of dollars and the producer of no products, except some high-tech things. So Trump is not in this war to actually bring down China, because if that's the case, then it becomes it becomes geopolitical war.
Well, they're in a competition.
No,
and America still wants to be ascendant.
No, but a competition is not to kill your opponent. Anyway, let's leave it at that point. What I'm trying to say in essence is that Trump knows where it's going to hit China. China is fighting back, but remember that Chinese economy is dependent export. American economy is not dependent export. So America can actually bring in people into American economy, those who want to actually sell to America. But China cannot bring in companies who will come to China to sell in China.
Yeah, but remember one thing, though. You made a very good point there, which is that the U.S. is a consumer society.
Exactly.
Which means that America is dependent on those things. And the minute the prices go up and they start to feel the pinch, you will see immediately the political backlash in America. And let me just make this point quickly. There was one comedian, American comedian, who said something really funny. He got on stage just a couple of days ago and said, look, we're American, we don't want to make the products. I don't know why Donald Trump keeps talking about bringing jobs to America. We don't want to make Nike shoes. We just want to buy Nike shoes.
Thank you. It's a good idea. But I will tell you, because it's when the dollar was a universal currency. Now, with yuan and the BRICS trying to displace dollar, America cannot afford that, because America has been living on, everybody must look for a currency. So in essence, America is better off than China, because at the end of the day, there will be so many inflow of investments in China, to United States, because you need that market. You and I must go to invest in America because the consumer market is broad. But in China, I cannot go to China to invest in China, to set up a factory, because the SS factory set up in China. The only area America has a problem is when you go to supply chain, because China has mastered the supply chain over the decades. You understand? That's where America has a problem, but it's going to be resolved.
Right. Well, so where do you think things are going to go? Is it going to head towards negotiation? And the reason I say that is that, I mean, we've seen China being very defiant, saying, you know, they don't have to hold trade talks, they can tough it out. But we understand that they've appointed a new top trade negotiator. He's Li Chenggang, that we mentioned earlier. He's formerly Beijing's representative at the World Trade Organization. What does that tell us, if anything? Does it mean that they could be talking to the U.S. very soon?
You have said it. You see, nobody wants to fight a war that none of the two parties will win. So at the end of the day, the two parties will come to the negotiation table and say, look, let's find the middle ground. America has been cheated. Let's face the fact. America has been cheated all these years by everyone dumping. But America accepted it because America was producing dollar instead of producing goods and services. Now, I have been producing dollar. You are producing good, and you also want to produce a currency, replacement of my currency. That is the cause of this, and Trump understood it. So there will come to a point when China will tell America, and America will tell China, let's negotiate in the interest of global economy. That's what they will call it. In the interest of, and then everybody will come to their senses. China will say, I give up this. America will say, I also give up that. And we get to that point because in this trade war, which we now move to currency war, China will not enjoy it. America also will not enjoy it. But America will be better off than China in this currency, in this trade war that will move to currency war. I'm telling you the truth.
Well, I'm really glad we brought you in to talk to us about it, because it's very interesting talking with you. Odelim Basil Enwegbara is an international development economist. Good to see you again, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.